All right, this is tape 18, and this is an introduction to democracy. Okay? So, the word democracy, what does it mean? The original Greek, demos, meant people, ocracy, rule of the people. It's really what it was. It came down to a very simple idea that rather than having a special family rule, rather than having military leaders or this select group of noble people, noblemen lead or anything like that, no, the people themselves would rule themselves. That's the idea behind a democracy. Now, with that in mind, there's a couple things you need to know. The first thing is a story that I have to tell you about Haiti. Haiti, desperately poor country, devastated in the 1990s by an earthquake. It's also had hurricanes hit it. It's a poor island out in the Caribbean Sea. Just about anything that can go wrong has gone wrong to it. But anyway, 1990s, Bill Clinton was president, and after a devastating earthquake, the United States decided to commit real money, billions of dollars, to rebuild Haiti and see if they could turn it into a functioning democracy. So we threw all this money at it, tried to build various things to make it work, food distribution centers, water filtration services, electricity, all that kind of stuff. We wanted Haiti to work. Then, as part of that, we sent down experts, and they helped the Haitian people try to get some sort of functioning government as opposed to the autocratic, authoritarian government they had before, and wrote all these rules and stuff. It was going to happen. They held an election back in 1997. And American journalists flew down to Haiti because they wanted to be there to see if democracy would actually work. So, democracy was going on. There was an election taking place. Everybody was so excited. And then, on the day of the election, a lot of people didn't vote. In fact, most people didn't vote. Why was that? Well, quote, I think, sums it up. It was from Pierre Jean, who was a Port-au-Prince, capital city of Haiti, a Port-au-Prince street vendor. And he said, "My children can't eat the vote. They can't eat democracy. Look at them. They're hungry." First lesson to know about democracy is very simple. It only works when people have enough to eat, when they have the basic things, when they have food, clothing, and shelter. Democracy is an awesome institution. But if people are too busy taking care of themselves, their basic needs, they don't have time to participate in a democracy. And as a consequence, it's not going to work. So, our effort to build a democracy in Haiti failed badly. And the reason for it was very simple. The people lacked basic essentials. It's lesson one. Lesson two, Yasser Arafat was, when I was growing up in the 1970s, 1980s, a terrorist, an Arab terrorist. But an effort was made to rehabilitate him and give him a position in the Palestinian government. So, Palestinians and Israelis came to some peace deals. Yasser Arafat had this position of power and responsibility. And the question was asked his Israeli counterpart, and that was so, forgive the interruption, talking about Yasser Arafat, this Palestinian terrorist who was reformed, if you will, became a leader in Palestine, working with his partner, the Israeli Prime Minister Shimon Peres. And Shimon Peres was giving a speech. And in the speech, he was talking about Yasser Arafat and trying to establish a democracy among the Palestinian people. And he said, and I'm quoting what Yasser Arafat said, he said, recently, Yasser Arafat said to me, I'm quoting Shimon Peres, the Israeli prime minister. He said, recently, Yasser Arafat said to me, I know you want us to be democratic, but democracy is so tiring. Who invented it? You have to go to meetings and then more meetings. And this is a very important point about democracy because it involves the rule of many. You got to get their consensus. You got to get their support. You got to talk to them. You can't just say, this is the way it's going to be. It involves time. It involves meeting. It is a slow process. It is not efficient. Okay? If you're looking for efficiency, the other forms of government are efficient. Democracy is not efficient. Okay? So, that's the second point. In addition to democracy, really you need people who have the basic stuff of life already. And the fact that it takes a long time. There's a third thing about democracy. And this is a troubling thing about democracy. I want to read to you a quote from a Russian journalist. Russia, after the fall of the Soviet Union, really made an effort to become democratic. The effort, for the most part, has not succeeded. Basically, Vladimir Putin is leader for life of Russia. But they do have elections. They have some semblance of a democracy, even though Vladimir Putin recently tried to kill his principal opponent through poisoning him. They still have some semblance of democracy. Now, here is what a Russian journalist said. Democracy does not protect people from killers. It protects society from concentration camps. Okay? Democracy does not protect people from killers. It protects society from concentration camps. In fact, what you find is that democracies often have violence. They have crime. That's because people are free. And because people are free, sometimes people do bad things. But the crime that occurs is crime of an individual kind of nature. It's one person robbing a house. It's one person killing. It's one person raping. At worst, it's a couple of people who do things. It is not the government that is rounding people up and locking them in a prison and then torturing them and killing them. That's a concentration camp. So you often find in democracies violence. So you put these three things together. To have a democracy, you must have people with the basic things of life already taken care of. Next, you must have a lot of time. Okay? Takes a while, and it's not going to be efficient. And number three, despite all that, it can be violent. There will be crime. Put all that together and you go, here's a democracy. And the quote of Winston Churchill, the great British Prime Minister, really comes to your mind. And that quote is very simple. Democracy is the worst form of government except for all the others. Democracy is not perfect. Democracy has flaws. As Winston Churchill said, democracy is the worst form of government except for all the others. In subsequent tapes, we're going to be talking about the characteristics of a democracy and different types of democracy.